Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Nick Lugo Show, where I study the success tactics, practices, and principles of some of my favorite achievers. The achiever that I bring on today goes by the name of Jude Charles, a man who has filmed documentaries for the likes of Steve Harvey, Keyshia Dior, and Google, and really knows how to frame somebody in the perfect light, really knows how to frame their story and really make that story powerful. He shows us how to frame our personal story and really show us, well, that we have different narratives in our life. I'll give you even a piece of this podcast today. He told me, and this is something that's going to stick with me for a very long time, your life is a story. Tell it right. And I've never thought of it like that way before. Imagine, let's say you get bullied, and you could frame your life in two ways. You could say, well, I get bullied, and therefore I am going to give up and really struggle and not really care about life. Or you'd say, well, I got bullied and I rose from the ashes and changed my life for the better. And there are two ways to view your life, and you could really choose either. So Jude Charles gives us the perfect way to really, really understand our story and frame it in the perfect way. I give you today Jude Charles. Enjoy the podcast. Hello, Jude Charles. First, I must let you know that I have the song Hey Jude has been stuck in my head for the last 2 weeks ever since I've been emailing you, Hey Jude, Hey Jude, Hey Jude. It's great to have you on.
It is a pleasure to be on. And Nick, believe it or not, there's at least one person who sings that song to me every day. One new person, not the same person every day, but one new person. And so I'm not surprised that song is stuck in your head.
It's a blessing and a curse, I can imagine.
It really is, because it's a great icebreaker, but it's also just like I hear it every single day.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Like, the song itself is a repetitive song. Like, the last 2 minutes are just them saying, Hey Jude, na 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 na, like over and over again. So I could imagine like that phrase is just embedded in your mind.
It really is, man. But I'm looking forward to this podcast today.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on from the daily torment of Hey Jude. So so you're here today to tell us about video storytelling, and I think that's something that I definitely am starting to realize with my life is something that's super important, especially as a podcast, and I have a YouTube and all of these things. And first of all, just explain to us, okay, you know what? What is video storytelling? Why is it so effective? Tell us about your career and tell us, how it is so effective in the world.
Yeah, so I was 17 years old when I first got started in video production. I had been playing around with cameras before then, but at that point in my life, I was in a TV production class in high school. And the teacher of that class, Mrs. Donnelly, said to me one day, May 4th, 2006, I'll never forget the day, she said to me, Jude, you're really, really talented at business. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, you're really, really talented at video production. You should start a business. And I'm the last of 10 children. No one in my family are entrepreneurs. And so I didn't really take it seriously, but the following day, May 5th, 2006, Mrs. Donnelly handed me a yellow envelope, and inside of the yellow envelope was my first set of business cards. And that gave me the confidence and the belief that I could really run a business, that all I needed was business cards. Of course, that was a naive thought, but 15 years later, that is how I ended up in video production, how I am blessed to be able to work with entrepreneurs to help them tell their story. And what is video storytelling? Video storytelling, I break it down in both words because they're two separate words. Storytelling, in my opinion, is very simple. It's about a very specific moment in time, right? That's it. So just like I just told you the story of Mrs. Donnelly giving me my first set of business cards, that is a story. Yep. Now, you add video to that. Video is just the visual reference of the story that I'm telling. When I mention very specific things like handed me a yellow envelope with business cards inside, like in your mind, you can see what a yellow envelope looks like. But I want to show you that. I want to show you the exact envelope instead. Or I want to show you the exact business card instead, which I normally have on my desk, but I can't find right now. I still have the very first business card that Mrs. Donnelly gave me. So that's what video storytelling is. It's bringing this story to life in a visual format so that others can experience that same story that you are wanting to tell or wanting other people to understand about you.
Okay, so then that's the question. So why is it that, for example, if you hold up the card, right, why does that make such a big difference? And is it because it makes it real? right? Is it because it makes it a little bit more tangible?
It makes it tangible. That's exactly the word I was going to use. It makes it tangible and it makes you believe it. Like there's an old saying that says seeing is believing.
Mm,
That statement is very true because we as human beings are visual creatures. We see things with our eyes. When we first learned how to read, we saw the word cat, but then we saw the letters CAT, but then we also saw an image of a cat so that we could have that reference point, right? The same way with dog, or the same way with when we say the color red, they show you the color red, right? Like we are visual creatures, and that's what makes it real and tangible. Is that's how we learn how to communicate. Two different ways we learn how to communicate: with words and stories, but then also with visual references. And so, yeah, I think that is why it is powerful today. And that is why on social media, you'll see like Instagram building their own video platform, where today they have reels and then a regular video, and then you have the Instagram TV, right? LinkedIn is the same way. They have their own video platform. Twitter has its own video platform. Facebook has its own video platform. All the reason for that is because video is just powerful, and it's powerful because when we see something, we believe in what we're actually seeing.
got it. So now explain to me what are now that we know this, that's like the psychology of
Yep.
storytelling, right?
Yep.
So now what are the best ways to use this psychology? What are the best ways to actually, well, psychological tips, practices, whatever that actually that you use in video storytelling to make it more real, to make it, more, let's say, convincing?
Yeah, I think when you the first thing when I work with clients, so I create documentary series for entrepreneurs. And one of the biggest things that I always try to get the entrepreneur to do, and it seems simple, but it's important, I think, is to be vulnerable. When you first meet someone, they want to know who are you and what are you about, right? And I think when you're telling your story, kind of like I told my story with Mrs. Donnelly, I'm going to go back to that story where I mentioned how like I'm the last of 10 and I didn't even think I could be an entrepreneur. It's small, but it's a little bit about the vulnerability. Like my father was a construction worker. My mom worked at a chair factory, and they're Haitian immigrants. They came from a different country. So the way we were raised, all 10 of us, was to, you go to school, get a good job, get a good education. And that's it. That's happily ever after. And so that little bit of vulnerability to say, I didn't even know I could be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what that looked like. That to me is the important part of storytelling, is like you bring me into this very specific moment in time and let me know what you're thinking, feeling, and seeing. And when you do that, that allows me to connect with you on a deeper level than just, oh yeah, sure, Jude is here on this show. He's a great filmmaker. He's worked with Google, Steve Harvey, and other entrepreneurs, but who is he really? What is he about? That is the importance of real, raw storytelling.
Well, so that's kind of the thing. So you're saying basically, you know what? Show them that you're a person, right? Like, yes, get the part of video. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so much different than text, is that, yes, you see the person, you know who they are, and you look at them and you're like, all right, this is a human being that I could actually something like connect with, right? We're connecting, even though we're just essentially just looking at each other over video, right? And you're saying, okay, given that, therefore we connect a lot better.
Right, absolutely. I think you said it, the beginning of that statement is like, are you a human being?
Yeah.
Everyone, especially on social media nowadays, they try to give this perfect image of who they are. And it's like, no, I want to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I want to show you that I'm human and that I make mistakes, even though I may be 32 years old and you may be younger than me. Like, I still make mistakes too, right? And I think that is the important piece of anything, of connecting with anybody, whether you're going for a job interview, whether you're going to do a podcast like we're doing today, or whether you are on stage like giving speeches. I think the importance is people want to know, are you a human being? And if I know you're human, despite all of your accomplishments, if I know you're human, I will want to connect with you and I want to follow what you're really doing in life.
And that's why I think it's actually really interesting. I've noticed this throughout all of the people that I admire and all of these things. They always put their backstory first, right? They always frame this idea of what is my story, and they tell it over and over and over again. And all of the podcasts that I listen to about them and all the speeches that they make, they always tell this one story. And Explain to me why they do that.
Yeah, again, it's about connection, and I think when you understand your story and you are reaching out to new audiences, that story never gets old. It's almost like listening to your favorite song over and over again, right? Even though,
Hey,
like you
Jude.
said, like, Hey Jude, exactly, right? Like, even though you admire the person and you're watching different interviews, you hear that story and over and over, you don't get tired of it because it
Yeah.
reminds you who they are, it reminds you where they're coming from. And it again allows you to connect with a different audience. You then begin to tell that story to other people. Like, oh, here's this really cool person I just met. And you don't just tell them you don't just tell them what that person does. Like, I'm a filmmaker. You tell them who they are. And you tell them that through their story.
Okay, so one of the things it's been on my mind so much, and I've been, I don't know if you guys do this or this is even part of the process or anything like that, but I've spent so much time looking at archetypes, right? Archetypes are so powerful to me. And you think about it, whenever somebody tells their story, right? And this is obviously connecting it back, you have an archetype that's attached to it. So for example, Tony Robbins, he has the nice rags to riches story. It's the, abuse, struggling, beat up, poor, all of these things, and was able to turn it around and do everything, And there, well, I guess that's the only one that comes to mind. But obviously there are thousands of different stories that you could tell. Maybe like the young entrepreneur that's a grinder, right? That's kind of Elon Musk. Then you have everything. So, do you guys use archetypes in your stories, and do you guys think about that stuff?
Not necessarily. So I am familiar with the archetypes, but I look at storytelling from a different perspective of core values, philosophies, and beliefs.
Okay, explain.
So the very simple way to explain that is like most people would say, I have a core value of integrity. Okay, what does that mean? Like anybody can say that. Everybody is going to say, I want to do the right thing. But what does that mean? And normally I'll say, tell me about a moment when you had to do the right thing and it cost you money, right? Like you lost out on money because you had to do the right thing, whether it was based on your principles, like whoever it is you wanted to work with just didn't fit the right like they didn't have the right morals that you believed in. That's where I look at core values. I have a client who her core value is transparency, right? So she believes in being transparent about her entire life, everything that she's going through. Okay, great. Where's a moment where you were transparent? And how I bring that to life is that she is going through, her name is Darnielle Jervy Harmon, and she's a business coach, but she's going through a tough journey of having children and fertility issues. Right. And so we talk about that story. I showed a nursery that she has built out in her home waiting on the children to arrive, even though she's not pregnant yet. But that's a level of transparency. And when you see that she opens up in that way, even though she's a business coach, this almost has nothing to do with business, but she opens up in that way so that you can see, again, that she's vulnerable. She's a real human being. She's going through struggles too, even though she's built a big business. And if you want to work with her, you can borrow and have the same faith that she has in her life for your business. And so that's the way I look at core values, philosophies, and beliefs is that, yeah, there's great archetypes, but I think when we look to connect with a human being, we're looking at, are you about the same things that I'm about? Do you stand for the same things that I stand for? Because if you don't, we can't connect and I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Okay, so let me ask you, all right? So for example, right, and I'll say it up front because I tell people this all the time, but it causes problems. So for example, I wrote a book called Break Your Bad Habits in 150 pages, right? And the obvious assumption there is, Nick, have you broken all of your bad habits, right? Like, Nick, are you, I'm not even going to exaggerate it. Are you like, not are you superhuman, but have you gotten rid of all your bad habits? And the answer is no, right? Like I haven't, and I form new bad habits every day, and I create them, and I propagate them, and I have bad habits. And well, the question is, when I tell people that, they're like, well, then you're invalid, right? Like you're invalid because X, Y, and Z, right? So, and my justification is that literally you can never get rid of all of your bad habits. You could just work to mitigate them. This is not, you can never become a superhuman. You will never become perfect. Yes, yeah. I got rid of many of my major bad habits, but I still struggle with some major, some minor, like I still have my problems. So the question is, how can I, for example, do that, right? Like, how can I tell the truth, be vulnerable without putting up this persona, this front, but then at the same time attain credibility? Because a lot of people say, "Oh, you have bad habits? Goodbye." Like, not interested.
Yeah, I think the question I would ask is, why did you write the book? Let's talk about that for a second.
Ooh, so we're getting psychology based.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wrote the book because many of my friends were struggling with habits that I did not have and also overcame. So, for example, I spent a lot of time being something like a health nut, right? Like, not, I was always worried about overeating because I saw that 66% of Americans are overweight. So I was like, you know what? Let me help my friends with that. And friends, family, all that, mostly parents, friends, all of these things, like, older people. And then you also have, okay, friends are smoking nicotine, right? Juul, all these things. So my purpose was, and I will definitely say it, somewhat, like, definitely altruistic. Like, I've been trying to figure out, okay, was it selfish? No, it definitely was a little bit altruistic. I really did want to help my friends.
You
So
wanted to help your friends. You noticed the effects of helping your friends, right?
mhm.
What did you learn from writing the book?
So obviously I did a lot of research, right? Like, really, really learned a ton. But I mean, I also learned how to self-test, right? Like, I did a lot of principles. I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe I don't struggle with juuling and smoking and all these things. And maybe I don't struggle with overweight, but I struggle with social media addiction. I
Yeah.
struggle with, name it. I know a bunch of things. And it's like, well, I could use those tactics on myself. And I basically went into a tremendous period of self-experimentation. So I definitely broke a bunch of my bad habits in the process, which was really interesting.
Well, there's the reason I asked those two questions of why you wrote the book and what did you learn. That is your credibility, right?
Mm,
Your credibility is the experience, the journey that you've been on, right?
mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean you've had to have been on the journey for 10 years to be an expert at it. The fact that you took the time to, one, help other people, and you saw the results of helping other people.
Yep.
Then you yourself self-experimented and saw things that maybe, okay, maybe I'm not as bad as I thought with X, but I have a social media addiction. That to me is the credibility, and that's where you may tell the story of you haven't broken all your bad habits, but there are habits you have broken. And
Yep.
because of that, that is where the credibility comes in. The credibility, and the reason I love storytelling is because when I ask you those two questions, instead of giving me statements and facts about breaking bad habits, you told me about your own experience, your own journey, right?
Mm.
I could go deeper and say, tell me about the very specific day where you realized you had a social media addiction. And then you could tell me a story about that. But the story is what gives you the credibility, because now you've taken me on a journey for me to realize on my own, hey, Nick is an expert at this because he's helped his friends and family. He's written a book on it, and he's learned a lot from writing the book and
Got
going
it.
through his own experiments, right? So that is, to me, that is where the credibility comes in.
Well, it makes sense, and this is something that, is so incredibly relevant, is just framing the narrative, right?
Yeah.
Because, you see this in political debates all the time, and just any debate is focused on, okay, how the hell do I shape the narrative, right? So what is it? What is the left? Are they evil? Are they good, right? Are they heroes? Are they villains, right? And it's the same way on both sides, and that's sort of the thing. So, for example, the way I'm framing it is, okay, you know what? Here's the way you're framing it is, okay, here's the narrative, right? He did this, he broke this bad habit, and he's focused on it. And then he's still constantly growing. That's sort of the idea. Constantly growing. And you know what? We'll never fully be grown, because you can never fully be grown. But then you could also, the way I framed it to you was sort of the negative narrative, if that makes sense, right?
Right.
The
Yep.
negative of, oh, he has bad habits, he's invalid. Interesting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think the way you frame it and the way that because again, a story is a journey. So the way that you show the journey, and I love the way that you ended the journey by saying, yeah, you're still growing. Like, the journey isn't over. You've learned,
Yep.
you've changed, you've transformed, but there's still more to come. It's kind of like how we watch TV shows, right? Like, when you watch a TV series like Breaking Bad, right? Like, an episode begins a certain way, and then there's a big problem that he has to solve. He solves the problem, but there's still a journey that he has to go on to continue this, like in Breaking Bad, he's trying to figure out his illness because he has cancer, and he creates the company, the drug company, so that he can leave behind an inheritance for his family, leave behind money for his family, right?
His meth company, yeah.
His meth company, right? But there's a small problem that he has to solve. He solves that small problem, and then he moves on to the rest of the story. And I think with your point of like, are you credible if you still have bad habits? Of course you are, because the point is, this is something you've focused on in your life, to break your bad habits. You may not be able to break all of them, but if you continue to knock down every domino, like eventually you'll have more good habits than bad habits, and that's what makes you an expert at it.
I think that's really interesting. One of the things that I took from that is, so, I've been trying to make a framework. So first thing, make it real, right? Like try to make everything tangible, make it so that you could see it. Second of all, be vulnerable. And I'm going to tag on something to that based on what you just said.
Sure.
Frame yourself as excessively human. I think that's something that's actually really important, like so that people don't see you as a god. And that's one of the problems that I see, is that people love to idolize people. So for example, right, you pick any celebrity, self-help guru, anything, right? God himself, right? And we love to play God on these people and idolize them and see them as, these tremendously high beings. But the problem is with that is, well, you know what? You lose the humanity in there, and I really don't like that.
And we all know as human beings we're not perfect. Yep. So if you try to portray yourself as a god, right, like, or as someone who is better than you, that's not someone I would want to follow, right? Because then it's like, okay, well, I feel small at that point. Why would I want to continuously feel small if you're just trying to prove that you're good at everything or you're right at everything? Right?
Also,
go ahead.
Here's one of the problems. Like, I do see this sort of God complex, and I see it everywhere, and I see it working. That's one of the things that I find problematic. You look at, for example, I'll pick a right and a left guy. So obviously for the right, I go with Trump, right? Where a lot of people see him, okay, you know what? God, he's God. I don't need to see him as a human. I don't care about his humanity per se. All I care about is, obviously. Then for the left, let's go with God. We'll pick. I could come with a few, but we'll think of, we'll go with the your typical, like, you're really left wingers. So we'll go with like AOC, right? And one of the things is, it's not like, okay, I really support her policies and here are the things that I really care about, and I'm going to continue to read up on her policies. It's like, no, I'm just gonna, like, I love her, she's the best, and whatever she does, that's what I'm going with. And you know what? That's kind of a problem. So the question is, why does that work so well? And why are we so willing to set aside someone's flaws? I mean, you look at Trump, right? Like, he has thousands of flaws. He sort of owns his flaws, and yet people still love him. Like, what exactly are we doing there?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting case study, Trump, because he tapped into a very interesting time in America where people were tired of losing jobs. Factory jobs, specifically manufacturing jobs. They were tired of, there was this narrative that people believed about immigration, that people that come from different countries are the ones that cause the violence, right? So he tapped into those narratives, and he tapped into the human psyche that feared what could happen next.
Okay, agreed. Right? Yep.
So why people decide to follow him despite his flaws is, I think, because he was able to tap into their own human psyche. It's a form of manipulation, really. And he was able to,
marketing is manipulation.
All marketing is manipulation, but there's good and bad to it, right? And I like that you said that, because it's neutral. Yeah. It's neutral based on what is it that you believe.
Yeah.
And for the first time in America, what we saw was people storm the U.S. Capitol. And I remember the day it happened that, honestly, I was headed to the gym that day, and I was shocked that this was a real story happening at the moment. But the point is that he was able to. The reason that those people tapped into, the reason that they followed Trump and were able to storm the Capitol is because they truly believed in their own narrative, and that's what he tapped into versus his narrative, which is that he is fallible. He will never say he's fallible. He'll never say that he still to this day doesn't say he lost the election. He says it was robbed. Yeah. Right. But he tapped into the human psyche and the human narrative. Now, some will say that it worked. Yes, he won an election technically and became president. In my opinion, it doesn't work long term. That's the problem with cults, right? The history of cults that we've seen, like the problem with cults is that they do not work long term because there are human needs and human beliefs after a while that it's like, wait, this isn't true. Why am I following this person? Like they make me feel less than.
I would
And so,
actually almost disagree. I mean, like it's really difficult because, we struggle to define a cult, right? When we think of a cult, we think of like, for example, there's a Christian cult that like they sexually abuse the kids and they said, okay, you know what, it's really, really, it does so much good for you. God loves you more if you do these acts, and it's really awful and blah blah blah. That's a cult, right? And we could define a cult as something that is belief on something that doesn't really exist, and you sort of make a few leaps of faith, and then you end up at some place that is pretty awful, right?
yeah, yeah.
But the problem is, you could easily, if I'm an alien sitting, like 10 feet above humanity, I could say, wait a second, isn't Christianity a cult? Isn't religion itself a cult? Isn't politics a cult? Isn't every single thing that we do a cult? And the only reason why we don't call it a cult is because we believe it to be good instead of bad. And the only difference between a good cult, the only difference between something that's not a cult and something that is a cult, given the fact that there's a leap of faith that's required in religion, and a leap of faith for you to pick your favorite politician, and a leap of faith for you to take any steps in your life, then the only difference is just, the fact that one we label as good and the other we label as bad. And that's narratives.
That is narratives. And I think why, again, that goes back to the human. So the route that I was going is that the human psyche understands good from bad, right?
Yep.
And I think obviously the word cult has a negative connotation to it, but it's still neutral, which is something I mentioned earlier, right? Like everything at the end of the day is neutral. It's what the label that we decide to put on it. So why do a group of people decide to believe and follow Trump versus believing and following an AOC? Is the narrative that we put inside of our own heads. It's the belief and the experiences that we've had, and where that comes from is the story that you're telling in your own head, right? Like, I think if I look at, so let me be transparent. I'm an entrepreneur, right?
Yep.
And if I look at Trump as a whole, there are some great things he did for entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
Because he believes in that route, in capitalism, and he believes in helping entrepreneurs keep most of their money versus having to pay a lot in taxes. But then if I look at the human side and who I am and what I believe and where I've come from, my parents are Haitian immigrants, so I don't believe in some of the things that he says on the immigration side. I believe in treating everybody fairly and treating people like human beings. So I don't like it when he talks about like, Mexicans come over here and cause harm, right? So there's these narratives that we hold in our mind that will allow us to follow good and what we determine as good and bad people, or what we determine as godlike people versus people that are just real.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'll even take you one step further. I think it's really cool how, okay, the way you said it, right? You just said, I'm an entrepreneur. So that's one part of your identity, but you're also a Haitian, right? Yeah. And you're also a family man, and you're also this and that, and a community member, and all of these things. And the way I like to imagine it is that we have multiple personalities, right? We have multiple things. We have multiple labels that we attach to ourselves. And for example, we have multiple personalities. Sometimes I get angry, and sometimes I get focused. And my entrepreneur self, right, because I'm also technically an entrepreneur, my entrepreneur self is more likely to be focused. But, when I'm around my friends, maybe I'm more likely to be angry or whatever, or I'm more likely to be social. Mm-hmm. And you imagine that your psyche is being pulled in so many different directions, right? So you could say, you know what, Trump supports my financial interests. So he supports the entrepreneurship side of myself, but he doesn't support the Haitian side of myself. He doesn't support the human side of myself. And therefore, you could craft a narrative. And this is obviously getting back to the point. You can craft a narrative to make that one personality that you want be raised on a pedestal and to be used in the decision-making process and to really take over the psyche. And that is the thing that makes me like think so much, because I'm like, all right, what did Trump use? Trump used fear, like all of those types of things. And then you say, okay, name a good Republican. I don't know. We'll name like George Bush, right? George Bush, he used like Afghanistan came in and he used the hero mentality. He's like, you know what? Shame on, fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you. Like, we're going to get through this and we're going to do this together. And you could frame the narrative in whichever way you like. And you could use specific parts of people's psyche and change the way that they think. That blows my mind.
Yeah, and not only that, not only can you use the narrative that you want to use to change the human psyche, but I think long term, it just, especially if you're trying to be godlike, it does not work long term. If your only thing is to look perfect, right, and there's nothing wrong with you, it does not work long term, because we as human beings, as we search for things, even if you may feed me a narrative, long term that doesn't work. And I say that because even Republicans who had been on Trump's side from the beginning, towards the end of his election, towards the end of his presidency, was just like, no, I don't believe in what you believe in anymore. You've kind of gone too far at this point, right? Like, there are, like you mentioned with me being an entrepreneur, but also being a Haitian and also like having a human side, there are levels to what I'm willing to sacrifice as far as like what's most important to me, right? Like, to me, immigration, because of my parents coming from another country and giving me a better life, like they came from Haiti, poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, right? Yep. We've seen what they've gone through recently with their president being killed, and an earthquake right after that. Like, it is a tough country to live in, but to know that they came to America to give me and my siblings a better life, like, that matters to me, because I wouldn't have the life that I have today. And yes, I'm an entrepreneur, but I couldn't be an entrepreneur if my parents didn't come from Haiti to America to give me a better life. And so that's why there's levels to it. And that's why I say long term, yes, you might get me at something that affects me and that I believe in, and I may want to follow you. But then long term is just like, wait, but I don't believe in you anymore, because you're not being real, and you're not showing me that you are a human being. And that's what I want to connect with more than anything, is a human being. I think that's all we all want to connect with, is a human being. And that's why I think the godlike complex does not work long term.
Interesting. And I really like that. And, the way I like to think about it is, I guess this is shifting gears a little bit, but you kind of brought it up and I want to run with it. It's something like, okay, you have a narrative, right? And the funny thing is, you talked about when you were 17 and you got a business card and all of these things. That is sort of the thing that frames your life and the thing that frames your story. But the problem with that idea, or maybe the beauty of the human story, is that you just picked one random moment, or you just picked one influential moment out of the thousands of influential moments that happened throughout your entire childhood, and use that to frame yourself. And really think about it. You could have picked anything. And it would change the entire way in which you view yourself. So, for example, right, this is a right and left thing. We're just in the political realm. We'll just stay with it. I'm fine with it. But, like, you have the people who are on the right who say, you know what, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Everything's on you, right? And I'm actually in a research lab where we're studying this. Republicans, or conservatives more than liberals, believe in free will. They believe that I am in control of my destiny, even if that is to some degree wrong, because to some degree it is wrong. But then you have the liberals who are more, it's systematic based. It's, some things are out of my control. And you know what? Maybe if, I was born poor, then I'm more likely to stay poor than someone who was born rich, which is just a statistical fact. So then you could frame your life in completely different ways given this belief system. So, for example, if you're poor and you have this belief in free will, you could say, well, how beautiful is it, that I was given this life, that I am put on this planet, and I can do whatever the hell I want to do. And when I was in 5th grade, I had this one experience where I, like, controlled the classroom and everybody loved me and I was the hero and blah, blah, blah. Or you have the people who are saying, well, I'm born poor and, I'm a bit of a victim and, I'm really struggling and I'm just living a really tough life. And that both of those things are true. That's the problem, right? When you frame these narratives in this way, life is so complex in the fact that both of those things are true and you could choose both of them. And God, then you could easily use it to just tell your story, right? So I could easily just tell my story in a completely different way than I do now. And I could see that being problematic as well as hopeful.
Yeah. I can't think of who says the quote, but there's a quote that says, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a
Right?
great. I think that was Henry Ford.
It might have been Henry Ford. I think you're absolutely right. It's Henry Ford. Whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. And that is the power of the human brain.
Yeah.
I actually posted this video on Instagram yesterday. It's a video of me working out, but I'm telling the story in the background of a kid. I go cycling often, and I tell the story of this kid that I saw rehearsing the trumpet. He was playing the trumpet on a Saturday afternoon in the stands, the football stands, by himself.
Wow.
And I said to myself, you know what? It instantly clicked. Like, this kid chose a Saturday afternoon when no one would be here to come and rehearse playing in the stands as if it's game day.
Yeah.
Right? As if he's in the band and it's game day and he's playing in the stands, because he wants to envision doing it the right way. He wants to envision a brighter future for himself.
Yep.
That same kid could have decided to not work out that day or go play basketball or go hang out with his friends or go play video games, and still he would have had a different life. But he chose to believe the story that if I come out here and practice today and I practice as if it's game day, I will do it right. I will know what it feels like and I will do it right. He chose to believe that story. And that is whatever story you tell your mind. Just like I could have told myself in the beginning, I can't be an entrepreneur. No one in my family's been an entrepreneur. How could I do it? I'm 17. I haven't even gone to college yet. Like, why would I be an entrepreneur? That same story I could have believed and taken a very different route. God. So whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. You choose.
Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy. And, oh, God. So tell me, what about that video? You know, when we think about somebody playing the trumpet, because I've seen that all the time. Drew Brees has a famous video where Reggie Bush, his running back, was taking a video of him in the practice facilities where Reggie Bush is sitting there and he's like, you see, he's got like the selfie sort of image. And he's like, you see, this is Drew Brees behind me. He is pretending to take a snap, pretending to drop back, actually dropping back, but not even holding a football, and looking, and pretending to throw without even a football. And he goes, that is Drew Brees. And that is what makes Drew Brees. You know, like that is what makes him one of the best quarterbacks of all time. And it's like, okay, what about that video itself? Because, you know, a big part of it is like, okay, you know what, given this story, given this narrative, given this framework, what makes it so powerful? And why is it that we like this type of story always goes viral?
I think what makes it go viral, that's a great question. I think what makes it go viral is the reality that the story is true for yourself.
Okay.
So what do I mean by that?
Yeah.
The quote that I put under the video that I posted yesterday was, most people aren't willing. Let me actually look it up while I talk to you, because it's a very interesting quote and I don't want to say it wrong.
All right. I like it. I'll go with it.
But it says, most people will live with the undesirable circumstances instead of doing the undesirable work.
Interesting. Okay.
The video is a video of me working out in the gym. The story that I'm telling is of a kid rehearsing on a Saturday afternoon when it's uncomfortable. And the quote that I put, I'll say it again, most people will live with the undesirable circumstances instead of doing the undesirable work. The work you have to do behind the scenes is hard, but what I'm doing is that instead of just saying the quote, right? Because I'm saying the quote to you and it's like you're trying to wrap your head around it. I can see you trying to wrap your head around it. Instead of just saying the quote, I gave you a visual reference of me working out in the gym, and it does not look easy what I'm doing, right? Yeah. But it's because I want to change the undesirable circumstance that I have in my life. This kid working out in the stands, I don't know what his background could be, but it's an undesirable circumstance where he's probably not where he wants to be in his life. Yep. But he's willing to do the undesirable work Saturday afternoon in the hot sun, sitting in the football stands to rehearse his trumpet. It's the same thing with Drew Brees. He's already in the NFL. He's already made it, quote unquote.
Yep.
He doesn't have to envision himself throwing the football to a wide receiver or to a tight end, but he does it because he still doesn't have the circumstance that he desires. So what makes videos like that go viral is that there's a visual reference in your mind where you're able to see, oh my gosh, I hear these words, but now I see that it's possible. I see that there's something different that can be done. Whereas if I didn't believe it before, I believe it now. It's kind of like what I told the story with Mrs. Donnelly giving me the first set of business cards. She told me the day before I should be an entrepreneur, but I kind of brushed it off. The moment she gave me business cards with my name on it that proved I could do this, now it becomes what I often talk about, which is a dramatic demonstration of proof. It wasn't just, hey, Jude, go be an entrepreneur and here's a way to go online and start your business. No, this was a dramatic, she went out of her way to go to Office Depot to get the business cards. Demonstration, she handed me the business cards of proof. Proof that now that you have these business cards, you are an entrepreneur. There's no reason to doubt it. Again, going back to all the references we've been giving, Drew Brees, why is he such a great quarterback? What is it that he's doing? Like, it's this dramatic demonstration of him working behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's dramatic because it takes you out of the ordinary reality, right? Yes. Like, you're like, okay, this is drama. It is different, right? And it is so different, to see someone playing a trumpet or seeing Drew Brees do that. Okay, I'm with you.
Drama is emotional, right? Like an emotion can be good or bad, right? It could be angry, like you talked about in the beginning, or it could be laughing, or it could be smiling, or it could be inspiration. I think for me, it was inspiration. Seeing that kid in the stands, it was just like, I get it. Like I don't know who he is. I never met him. I did take a picture of it that day, but it's like, he's going to be someone great later on in life because he has this work ethic.
Yeah.
Again, the same thing with Drew Brees. It's like, you don't know what he does behind the scenes, but seeing that moment, it's like, oh my gosh. It does change reality. It changes what is happening. Another great one that's a sports reference is Stephon Curry. There's this great video of him shooting a three-point shot with his eyes closed. And we all know how great Stephon Curry is at shooting three-pointers. But to know that he can do it without even seeing the basket, why is that? Because he's already done it so many times that he's envisioned it, and he has muscle memory to know what it's like to shoot that three-point shot and make it go in. Again, all of that is a visual reference.
So it
proves that he is great at what he does. It proves why he's great at what he does, and that is the truth. At that point, it becomes a fact. It is no longer an opinion. And that is, again, the power of video storytelling, the power of seeing it with your own eyes. Seeing is believing. Believing, it means that it's true in your mind, not that it's an opinion. It's a fact in your mind.
Wow. Okay, so let's do a case study. Okay, so I'm doing two things at the moment. One, running a podcast. Two, running a professional hypnosis at my local college. So I am a professional hypnotist, and I am hypnotizing students to be more productive. So get a group of people together, they pay $5 to $10, and I give them the hypnosis, like, you're getting sleepy, they get tired, all that stuff. Give them the suggestions, they end up more productive, able to focus, concentrate, all that stuff better. How can I do a dramatic demonstration of proof in both scenarios?
Sure. So walk me through the journey of, let's take a real case study. Give me your last person. You can use a fake name if you want to, but the last person you put under hypnosis, what happened? Tell me about that.
Okay, so the last people that I put under hypnosis was 7 people. Okay. So I walk into the room, and actually what happened was, so I walked into an accounting classroom with 180 people, and I asked the professor, I say, hey, can I, speak in front of your class, give a little advertisement. So there's a big lecture hall. She goes, sure. So I do that. So I advertise in front of 180 people. I say, hey, here's my hypnosis thing, blah, blah, blah. You guys should come. Great. So so a bunch of people were interested. They're like, oh, wow, super interesting. I put a thing on the front. I say Hodge Hall. That's the place where it was, 1038. And they're like, a bunch of people taking pictures. Okay, cool. Now, around 6 o'clock it's at 6 o'clock. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I hope people come in. Like, let's sort of see how it goes.
Same day, just so I know I have the context. 6 o'clock the same day, or
same day.
Same day. Okay, got it.
Same day. So 6 o'clock the same day. I'm walking in. I'm like, all right, and I hope people come up. One person shows up at 5:30. It's like, ooh, great, wonderful. We talk for about 30 minutes. Then people are coming in, we're having a conversation, talking about their accounting teacher, all that stuff. And then yeah, like we talked for probably about from 6 o'clock, probably talked till like 6:20, put them under hypnosis for a good 30 minutes, which is yeah, like they're sitting there. Imagine 7 people, eyes closed, hands on their laps, just completely focused. I tell them to drop their chin towards their chest, and they are just fully relaxed. And my big thing is I'm telling them like, notice how good it feels to be relaxed. Notice how amazing you feel in this moment, and realize that you're going to end up coming back to this moment, not in this hypnosis session, but in your daily work when you're doing things. And you're going to feel so good being immersed, being in the sense of flow. And then by the end of it, I wake them up, they open their eyes and walk out.
After they walk out, how do you know they have been more productive?
I don't. I just, I end up texting them a few weeks later, likely, they come back, which is nice. But yeah, like for my repeat customers, I always ask them how they did, but nothing more than that.
Yeah, the biggest proof is going to be after, because the claim that you made is that you put people under hypnosis so that they can be more productive.
Yes.
I want to see someone being productive. The hypnosis is cool. The advertisement is cool. I think you should document that whole entire journey. But the proof comes in the results and seeing the results happen. So the reason I say that is like, I work with entrepreneurs, and one of the claims that I make is that entrepreneurs can make money from their video, right? Or from telling their story on video. Mm-hmm. I not only have documented the journey before the client starts working with me, but then obviously I am telling their story. And what I've started to do is document people's reaction to their story.
Okay.
So what do I mean by that? Darnell Jervy Harmon, I'll use her again as an example. We were talking one day and she said to me, yeah, I'm going to be on this podcast. And I didn't originally send the guy my docuseries, but he watched my docuseries before being on the podcast. And he told me, and he was so excited about me being on the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I went out of my way to reach out to the podcast host to interview him about his experience on watching that docuseries and why he liked it so much. Mm-hmm. Right? Because then that shows results like, here's someone and here's why they love it. It's not just Jude saying, yeah, I can create a story that's going to make you money and that people are going to love. Here are other people saying how much they love something that I've created that I didn't pay them or they didn't pay me to be a part of the project. So I think it's seeing the results, seeing how it's tangible. Again, you want to make it tangible. If this person's being more productive, let's just say, I don't know, they had bad grades before working with you, and now they have great grades because they're able to stay up longer and study, right? Like, okay, let me see you staying up at 2 o'clock in the morning studying and not feeling tired, not looking tired. Let me see you going to get your grade from the teacher or a midterm paper maybe that you submitted. The teacher hands you back the midterm paper and you see a big A on the paper.
Yeah.
That shows proof that, oh my gosh, last time I took this test, it was a C. Now I have an A. That's the proof that it was because I worked with Nick or because of whatever Nick taught me that caused me to now have good grades in school. So I think overall it's just the proof of the results. You want to show the journey. It's not just the beginning of the journey, which is you going to the class. I really like that, actually. That's why actually if it was the same day of like went to do the advertisement and then putting up the post, like if it was the same day, because that's a whole thing that you could document. Even if you wanted to be honest with you, even if you wanted to make an experiment for this podcast, you could do it as an audio storytelling, like just pin a mic to yourself. Hey teacher, will you let me advertise? You advertise, you hear people coming up and asking you questions, and then you're doing that's a whole journey. And that takes me on a journey of seeing what will eventually be the final results, but you have to document the entire journey, not just parts of it.
Oh, that would be so interesting. That'd be so cool. I mean, like, that's the thing. So like when you talk about dramatic demonstration of proof, like Tim Ferriss, he's one of my heroes. Do you know Tim Ferriss?
I do. Yep.
Yeah. Right. So he started this thing, little known, but it was called the PX Project in college in Princeton. And what he did was he was teaching people speed reading. So, college kids, how to read faster. And the main thing on his website is increase your reading speed by 384%. Wow. So what is that? Right? Like it's a guarantee you're increasing your reading speed by a dramatic amount, something that doesn't even seem real. And when you could do that, he never did a video storytelling. Obviously, this was like 2000. 2000. But yeah, like something like that is why it was the main piece. It's like, all right, you know what? That really, really makes you think, okay, you know what? This is real. This isn't fake.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like I don't too much believe in magic, but when you watch is it David Blaine? I think that does magic. But when you watch one of his videos or his specials that he does, and you see him doing the magic, it's almost like how can you not believe it? Because you're seeing it happen, even though it can
Yeah.
maybe be manipulated in some ways. You're seeing it happen. How can you not believe it? That is the power that we have today with social media. That is the power that we have today with the cell phones in our pockets. That you have an opportunity to document your life and document your journey, good, bad, and ugly, to be able to get people to believe in whatever it is you want them to believe. Whether it's to believe that you are a helpful person, whether it is to believe that you can help them make money, whether it is to believe that you can help give them a better life. We, as human beings, we have BS monitors, and we know when people are lying to us, or we may not believe it all the way, but if you have visual proof that the claim that you're making is possible because it's possible for others, people will believe it, and they will then want to handle, whether it's handing over money or deciding to work with you, whatever it is, they will want to do it in that way. And that's the power of video storytelling that we have today.
Oh, that would be so cool. I mean, it makes sense, right? It just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you know what? People love to see everything. They love to see everything. They want to watch it happen. That's why documentaries are so damn important. And obviously, you know, that's what you do. And it's just wow, that is so awesome. So,
Yeah.
anyways, Jude Charles, give us one final recommendation. What is the thing that most video storytellers get wrong when they start off? What is the thing that really kills them? And then let us know what you have going on in your life.
Sure. I think the thing that kills video storytelling is trying to be too cool about it, trying to have too many tricks and focusing on the technical parts of it. I focus on the story. That is all I focus on is the story. I do not allow although I use great equipment, I do not allow the equipment to get in the way. And why I mention that is because anyone listening today has a camera in their pocket right now. Document your life, document your journey, even if you're never going to post it. I have some things that's in my phone that I've never posted, never used before. But it's a part of your journey, it's a part of your story. You don't know how you'll use it later on in life. Of course, experience the moment, enjoy the moment, but also document the moment so that you can come back to it and realize how your life has changed over time.
Oh, I love that.
What I have going on is dramatic demonstration of proof, which I talked about. I actually talk about that through an email list, private email list that I do, where I talk about not just dramatic demonstration of proof, but the business side of storytelling. Like, how do you not only learn how to tell your story visually, but then make money from it? Like, I think that's the biggest thing that people aren't understanding is not just how to tell your story, but like, okay, what are the next steps to make sure I can use this over and over and over again? Especially like what we talked about with you being a hypnosis coach. Is that the correct term?
Professional hypnotist.
Professional hypnotist. With you being a professional hypnotist and wanting people to pay you to hypnotize them, well, how do you use that not just today, but next month or 10 months from now or 10 years from now? Even if you change careers, how are you able to shape that to use to go to the next level, to go to the next step? That's what I teach you this private email list, dramatic demonstration of proof. It's called the email list is dramatic leverage. But the way to do that is to visit judecharles.co/list. And that is the way that you're able to sign up for that.
Perfect. And the link will be on the description below. And one thing that I love to say, and you know what, part of the reason why we do this podcast is because we want to make people act. We want to make people actually do things and make better decisions in their lives. So I would like to just echo your point on the fact that you have a phone in your pocket and the fact that if you're thinking about starting up a podcast, for example, you have a microphone in your phone. And if you were to look at my first episode, just listen to the first 10 seconds and it is the crappiest audio quality with, things are crackling and it's all terrible, but I did it with my phone and I just got it started. And the biggest thing that gets in the way of success in general, in my opinion, or at least, yes, is not taking the first step. Not taking the first step is the most difficult thing. I thought about starting a podcast for so long, and one day I just said, screw it. So, you know what? If you're thinking about becoming a video storyteller, you have a phone in your pocket, you have a microphone in your pocket. If you're thinking about doing anything, it is so easy to just get started. And if you look at almost all the greats, they started on the crappiest, worst technology. And you know what? After maybe 200 episodes, if you're a little bit more consistent, or maybe after 30, whatever, then you're going to be like, okay, you know what? Then I'll upgrade the equipment. But just start. Just start.
Just start. That's it. Just start. And to your point about 200 episodes later or whatever, like, never give up.
Yeah.
Get started and never give up. Even if you've got to pivot, change how you, like, I started by doing birthday parties and graduation parties and
I love that.
retirement parties, right? But today I'm doing documentary series, big level projects. But just get started. You never know where your journey will take you.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So, Jude Charles, thank you for coming on.
Nick, thank you for having me. It was definitely a fun conversation.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Nick Lugo Show with Jude Charles. To support this podcast, please give me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or subscribe to my YouTube channel. And so I'll leave you with the quote by Michelangelo. I saw the angel in the marble and I carved it until I set it free. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.